150 million years ago, in what is now Western North America, a forest changed, not over centuries, over an afternoon. A herd of sauropods moved through it. 70-ton animals, 17 meters from nose to tail. The ground registered their passage. Conifer branches snapped 20 meters up. Ferns disappeared by the square meter. When the herd moved on, the forest was a different place. We infer this from a single coprolite from the Morrison Formation. It is roughly the size of a loaf of bread. It contains fragments of cycad, fern, and conifer, and it holds over a dozen species of plant material in one mass. What does that tell you? One animal, in one day, consumed and processed a botanical cross-section of its environment. This coprolite is Exhibit A. It is not just fossilized dung. It is the physical trace of a living, breathing landscape machine. But what kind of machine? And what did it leave behind? Most of us grew up with dinosaurs as isolated monsters. A brontosaurus in a swamp, a tyrannosaurus in a swamp, a tyrannosaurus in a chase. The environment was backdrop. It was never the story. But what if the largest animals ever to walk the earth didn't just live in their world? What if they shaped it? Every day, a single adult sauropod ate hundreds of kilograms of plants. Multiply that by a herd of 20. Multiply that by 100,000 days. You don't have passive inhabitants. You have an ecological force. This is the ecological butterfly effect, not a literal flap of wings. The slow, cumulative power of biology itself. But how would we even begin to prove it? The dinosaurs left no written records, no management plans, no environmental impact statements. What they left was bone, trackway, coprolite, and sediment. A case file written in rock, and the case is still open. To understand what sauropods might have done, we need a working model. And the best model we have is standing in Africa and Asia right now. Elephants. A bull African elephant weighs 6 tons. It eats up to 300 kilograms of plant matter a day. It pushes over trees. It strips bark. It digs water holes. When elephants move through acacia woodland, they create clearings. Those clearings change light levels, soil temperature, and seed distribution. Grasses colonize. Browsers follow. The habitat shifts. Elephants are not just animals in the ecosystem. They are ecosystem engineers. Rhinos do it too. White rhinos create grazing lawns. Their wallows become microhabitats for amphibians and insects. Hippos transport massive amounts of nutrients from land into rivers through their dung. This is documented, measured, quantified. The principle is established. Large herbivores restructure their environments, so the analogy is useful. But here is where it breaks. An elephant weighs 6 tons. A large sauropod weighed 70. That's more than 10 times the mass. An elephant is a mammal. It is warm-blooded with a high metabolic rate, a specialized digestive tract, and it chews its food extensively. A sauropod was a reptile or something close to one. Its metabolism was probably lower. It didn't chew. It cropped and swallowed. Its gut was a vast fermentation chamber, possibly aided by gastroliths, stones swallowed to grind plant matter internally. The plants were different too. No grasses, no flowering plants as we know them. Ferns, cycads, conifers, ginkgos. Tough, fibrous, often toxic vegetation. The analogy works in principle, but the specifics demand a different investigation. So let's open the case file properly. Let's look at the feeding evidence first. In 2011, Martin Sander and colleagues published a synthesis on sauropod gigantism. They outlined a suite of adaptations that allowed these animals to reach sizes no land animal has matched since. Pneumatized skeletons. Air sacs invading the vertebrae, reducing weight without sacrificing strength. Long necks built from a relatively small number of elongated vertebrae, and a feeding strategy that didn't require heavy chewing equipment. A sauropod skull is small relative to its body. The teeth are typically pegs or spatulas, arranged for cropping, not grinding. The jaw opens wide. the neck sweeps across a vertical and horizontal range that Michael Taylor and Matthew Waddell would later model as a feeding envelope. A single Diplodocus could stand in one spot and clear vegetation from ground level to roughly 10 meters up, across an arc of several meters. It didn't need to walk to strip a tree. It just moved its neck. Now, multiply that by a herd. 20 animals, each covering a different elevation, working a forest patch like a coordinated demolition crew. Jim Farlow's energetics work from the 1980s and beyond calculated that a large sauropod may have needed upwards of 0.5 metric ton of plant material per day. That's not a number pulled from speculation. It is derived from body mass estimates, metabolic modeling, and the energy density of Mesozoic plants, and 0.5 metric ton is a conservative figure. At that rate, a single sauropod processed the equivalent of a small modern forest patch in a season. The coprolite from the Morrison Formation confirms the variety. It didn't target one plant. It sampled everything within reach. This wasn't selective browsing. This was bulk processing. And bulk processing has consequences. Strip a forest of its understory and its mid-canopy repeatedly, and tree recruitment fails. Gaps open. Light reaches the ground. Different plants colonize. The forest changes shape. The feeding envelope wasn't just a way to eat. It was a tool of vegetation engineering. But eating was only one mechanism. The second piece of evidence is underfoot. Trackways. The Morrison Formation contains hundreds of sauropod trackways. Some extend for kilometers. The footprints are deep. A single sauropod foot, depending on the species, could exert ground pressures exceeding 200 kilopascals. A modern cow exerts about 140, but body mass isn't evenly distributed. The front feet of sauropods often bear more weight, and the impact is concentrated on a relatively small area. Repeated passage along the same routes would have compacted soil, killed vegetation, and created drainage channels. Trackway sites show evidence of trampled ground, broken roots, and disturbed sediment layers. These weren't random wanderings. Isotopic analysis of sauropod teeth and bones, work done at the University of Bristol and other institutions, suggests some species moved seasonally between wet and dry habitats. They followed water. They followed food. And when they moved, they carried nutrients. A sauropod herd is a mobile fertilizer system. Dung and urine deposit phosphorus, nitrogen, and carbon into the soil. A single large bolus of sauropod dung could weigh tens of kilograms. It would have contained partly digested plant matter, gut microbes, and mineral nutrients drawn from plants consumed kilometers away. That dung becomes a nutrient hotspot. It fertilizes the soil. It feeds insects, fungi, and smaller vertebrates. It spreads seeds, cycad seeds, fern spores, conifer seeds, potentially over vast distances. And when a sauropod died, its body became a nutrient jackpot. A 70-ton carcass is an island of phosphorus and calcium on the landscape. It feeds scavengers, enriches the soil for years, and leaves a chemical signature in the sediment that could persist for millions of years. There's a trace of this in the geological record, anomalous phosphorus spikes in certain Morrison Formation layers. Researchers are still debating the cause, but the migration corridors themselves are the bigger story. Animate a herd moving across a floodplain, and trailing behind it is a plume of nutrient redistribution. The ground ahead is intact. The ground behind is cropped, trampled, fertilized, and reseeded. The landscape after the herd is not the same landscape that was there before. The tracks themselves become permanent features. Some sauropod trackways were likely filled with water, becoming linear ponds. Others likely channeled runoff, altering drainage patterns. The dinosaurs were not just walking on the earth. They were re-engineering its surface. There's a third mechanism: invisible, atmospheric. In 2012, David Wilkinson and colleagues published a paper, Incurred Biology, with a provocative title. They asked whether methane produced by sauropod dinosaurs could have helped drive Mesozoic climate warmth. Methane is a potent greenhouse gas. It is produced in the guts of herbivores during fermentation. Cows produce it. Termites produce it. And, the paper argued, sauropods would have produced vast quantities of it. Their calculation was based on estimated population densities, body masses, and metabolic rates. They proposed that global sauropod methane output could have rivaled or exceeded modern anthropogenic and natural methane sources combined. The number was staggering. The implications were global. The reaction from the scientific community was divided. Critics pointed out that population densities for sauropods are poorly constrained. We don't know how many lived in a given area. The metabolic assumptions matter enormously. If sauropods had slower metabolisms, methane output drops. If they were partially endothermic, it rises. The gut microbiome of a sauropod is entirely unknown. Did they have methanogenic archaea in their gut? Almost certainly. Did they produce methane at the same rate per unit of body mass as a modern ruminant? Almost certainly not. The Wilkinson paper was not a proof. It was a hypothesis, a calculation that showed what was possible given certain assumptions. And that is how it should be presented, not as fact, as a line of evidence that demands more investigation. What the methane hypothesis does demonstrate concretely is that sauropod digestion was a biogeochemical engine, even if the absolute methane numbers are revised downward by further research. And